I tend to learn a lot from watching people less experienced than me, just even seeing them do things that I would never do, because it's like, oh yeah, that's a way that it could be done, and maybe I can use that to my advantage. I don't know. The only advice I usually give like younger players is to really have an open mind and open ears, and not to discount things, because a big part of who I am as a musician came after college, after I started to incorporate all of the things I learned in the various ensembles and styles of music I played. From marching band to orchestra to opera, percussion ensemble, steel drum band, rock bands my whole life, big band. All of those things, even though I wanted to be a drum set player, I realized that the concepts, musically and technically, that I learned on like 4-mallet marimba or jazz vibes or hand drumming or timpani could directly apply to what I do. And it really, as a young musician starting out after college, I didn't have any luck until I started to incorporate that stuff, which made sense because it's true to who I am and my experience. But it, in college I would have discounted those things, thinking, oh, I'm never gonna, by junior year I knew I wasn't gonna audition for a symphony, and I knew I wasn't gonna be a solo marimba performer, a soloist. So it was like, why spend the time learning that? I just wanted to play drum set. Like, why waste the time? But then I realized, for instance with Wilco, every night I'm using 4-mallet marimba technique to do one-handed suspended cymbal rolls while I'm doing drumming with the other hand, and things I wouldn't be able to cover and play, things that I did on the record, unless I had that technique and had that experience. And that's just a technical thing. Musically, it's more of an impact. My background experience of things that are completely different from rock drumming, it largely informed what I do behind the kit with a rock band, in the way I play. So that's my biggest advice, is to just have open ears. Everything's connected. Don't discount anything. Learn from it. You never know when you're going to remember back, and it's going to spark and open a door for you and lead to a whole bunch of different discoveries. And of course, always, all of the stuff I do on my own comes out of just curiosity. Stay curious, ask questions. No, all of the above. Like, definitely, my teachers, past teachers, have informed, to a great deal of who I am musically and how I approach the instrument. Definitely, I've had a lot of different private teachers, and their advice that they give, or encouragement, or just their life experience rubs off on you, and it's it's a tool. They're already having lived all these years and sharing that wisdom with you, and giving, kind of knowing and letting you discover on your own. A good teacher will let you discover on your own, but also guide you, and that's something I've been really fortunate to have had a few of, with Paul Vertigo and some other, Jim Campbell. I've had a lot of teachers who I really respect and admire. But also, personally for me, every time I travel, every time I do anything, I learn from it, and I think, I can't walk into a museum, an art museum, without being stimulated by, paintings, and thinking about like, oh, this is a medium that's centuries and centuries old, and that someone found something completely fresh and original and new to do with it. And then I look back at my instrument that's 100 years old, and it's like, wow, the possibility for discovery is just so vast that it always inspires. And travel, of course, different cultures, meeting people, anything, like, watching my kids play. I can get great ideas from that too. So.
Okay. So are you a teacher yourself? Maybe not as your full-time gig, but on a regular basis, do you somehow?
I used to. When I joined Wilco 12 years ago, I was teaching full-time at 3 different high schools, 50 kids a week. And I was, before that, had taught marching band drum lines, percussion ensemble, things like that. Now, because of my travel schedule and recording schedule, I'm really not home that much, and when I am home, I have a lot of my own projects to do and family responsibilities. So I get to do residencies and workshops and clinics, things like this occasionally. But I think it's something is still very much alive in me. I just don't have the opportunity very much anymore, but that I hope to do more and more of, keep doing. Yeah, when composing, I kind of treat each project as it comes along as its own unique thing, and tackle it as it comes. So I don't ever have like pieces filed away or anything like that that I'll pull out. Um, as a drummer, I'm rhythm obsessed, and kind of everything I do relates around rhythm. So, for instance, when Kronos Quartet, String Quartet commissioned me, I started writing. I was like, well, I have never written for anything besides percussion before. What am I going to do writing for strings? So I just decided to keep it honest, keep to what I know. Don't try and pretend to be something different. And so I wrote the first few movements on the drum set, just treating a string quartet like the quartet of my limbs that I'm using all four, and using those ideas to let the music go from there. Same thing, with percussion ensembles, it's a little easier. I just did a long 18-minute piece for Yo-Yo Ma and Silk Road Ensemble, and that one was really challenging because it was a lot of non-traditional Western instruments, like Chinese pipa, shakuhachi from Japan, tabla from India, all these different instruments from different disciplines and different styles of music. But again, it was just like, okay, how can I be honest and do something for this group? And I like working within parameters, so I usually set up some rules, some sort of concept or idea first to go after, that musically everything should fit into and make sense. It's easier for me to do that way, and that includes solo pieces too. What I'm going to play today, my version of the solo monkey chant, Kotche, is very much that, because it's set to a story. It's about communication. It's portraying a story. So I actually am trying to tell a story by giving different sounds on the prepared snare here. Different characters represent different sounds, and their interactions follow the arc of the narrative. So it kind of varies drastically from project to project when it comes up, as far as how I'll approach it and what I'll do. But I think the one consistent thing I can say is rhythm is usually, that's what I'm most interested in investigating, and I don't want to spend the time and the energy that it takes to write a piece, which is substantial, unless I'm going to learn and grow from it as well. So I don't do it for the monetary rewards. I need to grow, to invest that kind of time from it in it. I think it's anything that's not the traditional approach to drum set, which is actually the original conception of the drum set. If you fast or rewind back to the initial days of the drum set, it looked a lot more like this than what you see normally on stage, or than what I use in Wilco or use with some of my other groups I play with, where I use a more traditional setup. Because it was just a multiple percussion instrument. You had instruments coming in to the country from all different cultures and kind of being thrown together and creating this weird instrument. So there were timpani and chimes, and the vaudeville and theater kits. It was all these drastic, crazy sounds, and I think just due to economics, efficiency, everything, the drum set kind of became codified through history, through bebop and drum and rock drumming and everything, to be more of a standard set that you see today, with a bass drum, snare drum, a couple toms, some cymbals. But I think avant-garde drumming is kind of termed anything when you incorporate different instruments or different ideas, different concepts. A lot of times, like, avant-garde drumming may not even be about the rhythm at all. It may strictly be about texture, about creating sounds for other instruments to lay on top of. And that's something I learned from doing free improvising situations, which would be avant-garde drumming. I would never play a beat the whole night or play time. I'd be bowing things and scraping things and using electronics on the drums to get sounds. And that's actually a lot more similar to the stuff I did in orchestra, where you're not necessarily playing rhythms and times. You might be playing a tambourine roll or a triangle roll or something like that. That's a splash of color that's there for a reason, but it's got nothing to do with rhythm. And I think avant-garde drumming is probably, if you had to define it, it would be thinking drummers and music that maybe doesn't fit into what the drum set has kind of become. But it's not really what the drum set is at its heart, historically. But maybe just, people who are thinking a little more freely and trying different extended techniques on the instrument.